So now I'd like to invite Terrence Joyce forward. Terrence is a professional artist, and he was initially trained by Italian monks in frescoes. And in 1981, he started the inner. Okay, hold on just a second. Just wait a second. He began the Inner Beauty Studio in New York, where he spent years painting murals and decorative finishes. And then he opened his own gallery. And that gallery became a meeting place and a show place for other writers and musicians and artists. And he moved his gallery to Venice in 2014. And so we've asked him to come today in honor of World AIDS Day, because he brought with him one of his paintings, and he's going to describe this painting to us, and then he's going to allow us to borrow it for a few weeks and hang it in the back of our fellowship hall. So welcome, Terrence, and please come forward. And then
Thank you, Reverend Vicki, and to this congregation for allowing me to display this painting today. It was painted in 1984 as my response to the AIDS crisis in the LGBT community. Its title is Dancing Till We Drop, Greenwich Village, 1984. And it's, somebody said yesterday, it's a gay artist's equivalent of that famous statue of the Marines holding the flags up on the hill as the buddies valiantly were dying around them. And that's what was going on in Greenwich Village in 1984, and I was there and perceived it. And it was a difficult time for our community, as everybody here knew. We had already gained some sort of sense of community from the days at the Stonewall onward, but we hadn't been ready for this crisis with any kind of resources of medicine, politics. We didn't know how to take care of ourselves emotionally or spiritually. And this crisis kind of brought us all together. While people were yelling at us and kicking us while we were down, kind of saying, see, God hates fags, you know. That was the general theme. But we strengthened ourselves around that. Not only with ourselves, with people who had always been there for us, people who had not seen us as pariah, but just as people. There's always been people in our community, like my brother Dennis and his lovely wife Francesca, who are here today, and their family. And we always needed the support of other people, but we strengthened. And this is a response to that, what I perceived then. And just prior to 1984, I was experiencing some of the most happy days in my entire life. In 1981, I stopped drinking, a problem that had let me live in despair for many, many years, and I was in recovery. And my partner, Alan, and I had our house, we were renovating a Victorian house in Brooklyn, and we had the house filled every weekend with people from the AA community and the Al-Anon community and just friends, and would gather and talk. And a lot of the talk was already about who's sick and who needs care, and we were already starting to decide who's going to take care of who, because there was no medicine, there was no doctors wouldn't take care of us, hospitals wouldn't take care of us, ambulances wouldn't come, and stuff like that. So we were kind of already taken care. It hadn't gotten that bad, but I was happy. It was a good time in my life. And then one day, Alan said to me that he had been having an affair with his Al-Anon sponsor, and he wanted our relationship to end. And I was devastated. And I tried everything I could to get the relationship to work. You know, what you do when you don't want to end a relationship, all the things you say and think. And I even separated for a short time. And I wrote him my final letter of, please, let's get back together, that kind of letter. And it was like 25 pages of, well, if you hadn't said this, I wouldn't have done that, and all of that kind of crap. Can I say that to you? All that stuff that we do when we're desperate. And then the last page, I said, Alan, whatever you decide, thank you for being there for me when I couldn't take very care of myself and I was an embarrassment. And I showed the letter to a friend of mine, and he ripped up the first 24 pages, and he said, this is what you need to say to this man. And he said, but you can only say it if it's true and if you feel it from your heart. And I said that. And he chose Alfredo. And I moved out, and a few days, I didn't expect this, sorry. A few days after, 3 or 4 days after I moved out, my doorbell rang in my new apartment, and Alan was standing there crying and said, Alfredo has AIDS. Will you help me take care of him? Sorry. And I went to talk to my friends. I said, is this crazy? And they said, yes, it's absolutely insane. You're hurting yourself. It's totally codependent. And then other people said, well, how do you feel? And I said, this is my friend. I love him. He's hurting. And I told him I'd take care of him as he took care of Alfredo, and eventually Alfredo died, and Alan was sick too. And Alan said, would you take care of me? And I did, until he passed. And it was a difficult time. Oh boy. But I was not alone. Everybody I knew was going through similar scenarios. All of our people were sick. And that's what this painting is about. This painting is a kind of gathering of a situation I remember. I was walking down one of those beautiful Greenwich Village streets one night, and there was a drag queen walking in front of me, big girl, with a red sequence pumps and a red sequence dress, and just going out for Saturday night. And I was walking behind, and I noticed her stoop, and there was somebody in the gutter just laying there. And I came up behind, and I bent down too, and his head and shoulder were on her sequenced lap. She was kneeling there. And I offered a hand. I said, can we get you up? And his head went like this. He said, his eyes kind of said, I can't get up anymore. And a few other people came by, and they sat with us. Somebody said, can we get you home to your friends, your family, your lover? He said, my lover just died. My friends are all dead. My family doesn't want me. And we just sat there with him and said, we'll stay with you so you don't die alone. And we did, and he passed. A few people passed by as we were sitting there, and they knew it was happening. It was not uncommon, this sight on the streets in Greenwich Village. They'd wipe their tears away and blow a kiss to him. And when he died, one of the guys said, I'll take care of this. I know how to take care of this. I've done this before. Why don't you all go? And we all got up and we held arms, and somebody said, let's go dancing. And that's what we did. We danced down the block, and then we went to some club and danced. And that's what this painting is. Some of the figures are already, the spirits are leaving them, but we danced, and that's what we did. And that's how our community, as I see it, got its strength. We held on and we danced. And we became a very strong community in spite of that. And I apologize for my... But this painting, Dancing Till We Drop, Greenwich Village, 1984, and Reverend Vicky said you might want to hang it in the back for several weeks. So thank you for letting me talk about this.